Today, I'm going to tell you the real story behind this title. My son forced me to kneel, and my words ruined his marriage. And trust me, nothing about that day was simple. What would you do if someone insulted you so brutally that your whole world snapped? And what if that someone was your own daughter-in-law at your grandson's birthday party, in front of everyone you know? Because that's exactly what happened to me, Margaret Turner, age 67, grandmother, widow, and apparently the boring old burden of the family. It happened on a warm Saturday afternoon in my son's backyard. Kids were laughing, balloons were bouncing around, and Tommy, my grandson, was proudly swinging a bat half his size. Everything felt normal, peaceful, perfect. Until it didn't. I'd simply leaned toward my daughter-in-law Brianna and asked, "Mind if I say a few words for Tommy?" She didn't even look at me when she leaned back and whispered, "Why, you talk too much. Honestly, your husband probably died to escape your voice." Her words punched the air out of my lungs. My iced tea slipped from my handle. Maybe I threw it. I still don't know, but suddenly it splashed across her face, dripping down her carefully done makeup like melting frosting. Then came my son, Ryan. "Mum, apologize right now, or leave." His voice cracked, not with anger, but with fear. Fear of upsetting his wife. And that was the moment I stopped caring about keeping peace. I straightened my shoulders, adjusted my blouse, and looked everyone in the eye. "You all think I'm losing my mind. No, I've just been quiet for too long. But not today." Parents froze mid-bite. Kids stopped running. Even the dog sat down, and Brianna, once confident, sharp-tongued, looked like someone had unplugged her. She didn't know that the last 6 months of my life had been spent preparing for this moment, because what Brianna didn't realize was that I am not the fragile grandmother she counted on. I spent 30+ years running the finance department for a major corporation. I know how to sniff out lies, patterns, and people who think they're smarter than everyone else. And Brianna, I'd been watching her, tracking her, connecting dots she never expected anyone to notice. Ryan grabbed my arm again. "Mum, please stop." I pulled away gently. "Son, you deserve the truth. And so does everyone here." Brianna's face drained of color. "What truth?" "You're imagining things." She's confused, she shouted, pointing at me like I was unstable. But confusion was the last thing I felt. I lifted my phone, opened a folder I'd saved months ago, and said calmly, "Should I start with the background check you ordered on me, or the real reason you married my son?" And the yard fell silent. Because what happened next didn't just shake the party, it blew open secrets Brianna thought she buried forever. And trust me, part 2 is where things get dangerous. The backyard felt frozen, like someone had paused the world. Kids were still clutching balloons, adults were stiff as statues, and Ryan stood between me and Brianna like he didn't know which way to run. I held my phone up, not shaking, not nervous, just tired of pretending. "Let's start simple," I said. Brianna, why did you hire someone to investigate my financial history last month? Her eyes darted everywhere but toward me. That's a lie, she snapped. You're making that up. She needs help, Ryan. She tapped her temple dramatically, as if I were the unhinged one in the yard. But the problem was, I had receipts. I opened the first document on my phone, a time-stamped email from a private investigator's office. Funny, I said, because I have the invoice with your name on it. Want me to read the note where you asked about my bank accounts, property deeds, and life insurance? Gasps rippled through the crowd. Parents exchanged looks. Tommy clutched his new glove, sensing the tension even if he didn't understand it. Ryan stepped closer. Mum, what are you talking about? I looked at him, the boy I raised alone after his father passed. The same kid who used to fall asleep on my lap after baseball practice. The man who believed Brianna hung the moon. Son, I said softly, your wife didn't marry you by accident. She studied you. Brianna's jaw trembled. That is not true. Oh, I asked, tilting my head. Then explain why you somehow knew which bank I used, my retirement account balances, even the trust fund your father set up for Tommy. I never told you any of that. Ryan blinked. Wait. I didn't tell her those things either. His voice cracked. I think, I continued, it's time everyone knows that Brianna met you on purpose. A hush fell. Even the breeze seemed to wait. Your chance meeting at that bakery downtown, I said, yeah, no coincidence. She'd been going there for weeks, watching you, following your schedule, learning what you liked, what you ordered, what you posted online. I took one step closer to Brianna, and do you want to know the worst part? She's done this before. Brianna's face went ghost white. Ryan staggered back. Before? What do you mean before? I opened a second folder on my phone. 2 names, 2 men, 2 marriages, 2 sudden deaths in their families. I didn't show the crowd everything, not yet. But even the glimpse was enough to send whispers flying like sparks through dry grass. Brianna suddenly bolted toward the house, but I called out, run if you want. It won't change what's coming next. She froze mid-step because she finally realized I knew everything. But Brianna's panic was nothing compared to what I discovered later that night when I learned exactly how far she was willing to go to secure her future. Part 3 is where the real danger begins. The party ended in chaos. Parents rushed their kids to cars, whispering frantically. Some avoided looking at me, others at Brianna, who stood frozen beside the sliding door like she couldn't decide whether to scream or faint. Ryan, pale as snow, kept repeating, "This can't be real, this can't be real," as he tried to process everything I'd shown him. And Tommy, sweet, innocent Tommy, kept tugging my sleeve, asking, "Grandma, did I do something wrong?" "No, sweetheart, you did nothing wrong. The adults did." When the yard finally emptied, I walked toward the porch swing, the only place that still felt safe. I needed air, quiet, space to think. But instead of calm, Ryan stormed after me. "Mum," he said, "you can't just accuse someone of something this big. Where did you get those files? Why didn't you come to me earlier? What if you're wrong?" I looked him dead in the eyes. "Son, I haven't even shown you half of what I found." He sat down hard, rubbing his forehead, the same nervous habit he had as a child. "Mum, are you saying Brianna married me for money?" "Not just money," I replied, "for control, for access, for a future she planned long before you ever met her." He shook his head. "But she said she loved me. She cried when we talked about Dad. She played a role," I said gently. "Everything about her was calculated. Even the first conversation you ever had with her, she knew exactly what to say because she'd already researched your entire life." Ryan swallowed hard. "Then what was she doing in my office that morning last month? I found a drawer open but assumed I left it that way." I exhaled. That was the day everything clicked for me. Because that morning in his office, I'd walked in early to drop off some cookies for Tommy. Brianna was there, kneeling in front of the filing cabinet, hands deep in the folder that stored Ryan's insurance policies, property records, and the documents tied to my estate. "Oh, Margaret Tyrian asked me to get something for him, tax papers, just a mix-up," she'd said, slamming the drawer shut. At the time, I didn't confront her. I wanted proof. And once I started pulling at the threads, her whole mask unraveled. I called my attorney, then the bank, then a friend of mine at the county records office, and the truth became impossible to ignore. Brianna had been gathering information about my will, Ryan's coverage, even Tommy's trust fund. She'd been calling offices, pretending to be family helping an elderly woman. She even tried to access my medical records. She wasn't just curious. She was preparing for something big, something dangerous. And when I checked the supplement bottles she'd been pushing on me, that was the moment I realized she wasn't planning to wait for nature to take its course. Because later that week, I uncovered the darkest piece of all, the part that proved Brianna wasn't just a manipulator. She might actually be deadly. Part 4 is where the truth becomes terrifying. The following days felt unreal. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and walk through the dark house, checking the locks, replaying things Brianna had said, moments I'd ignored, little red flags that suddenly looked like flashing sirens. But nothing hit me harder than the phone call I received on a quiet Tuesday morning. I was making coffee when an unfamiliar number flashed across my screen. "Mrs. Turner," a deep voice asked. "Yes, who's calling?" "This is Detective Andrew Collins from the Franklin County Investigative Division. We received an inquiry indicating you might have concerns about your daughter-in-law, Brianna Turner." My hand tightened around the mug. "I didn't contact your department," I said slowly. "But, yes, I do have concerns." The detective cleared his throat. "Well, ma'am, the reason I am calling is because Brianna Turner's name came up in 2 previous investigations from years before she married your son." My blood froze. "What kind of investigations?" I whispered. "Financial exploitation of elderly individuals," he replied. Nothing ever led to formal charges. The families backed off. But the pattern was interesting. Interesting. A horrifying word when it came from a homicide detective. He continued, "We're reviewing older files for a separate case, and her name resurfaced. Has anything unusual happened recently? Unusual." My mind raced through the last year like a fast-forwarded movie. Brianna insisting I try new vitamins. Brianna pushing me to switch doctors. Brianna accidentally leaving articles on her tablet about dementia and elder care. Brianna asking if I ever got dizzy or lightheaded. Brianna saying, "You should really update your medical power of attorney, Margaret. Just in case. Just in case." Those words now sounded like a loaded gun. I took a shaky breath. "Detective Collins, I think she's been trying to access my legal and financial documents. And I think she's been putting something in the supplements she gave me." He paused long enough that I thought the call had dropped. "Mrs. Turner, I want you to listen carefully. Do not confront her again. Do not take anything she gives you. Do not discuss this over text or email. We will contact you soon. Until then, stay cautious." The call ended. But my fear didn't. I drove straight to a private lab in another town and handed over the supplements Brianna had been urging me to take. They promised results within 48 hours. Those were the longest 48 hours of my life. When the lab finally emailed me, my stomach churned as I opened the report. The capsules Brianna gave me were not the brand she claimed. They were tampered with, and 2 of the ingredients listed were flagged in bold red. Potential to induce heart rhythm irregularities in elderly patients. Hazardous without medical supervision. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my phone. She wasn't planning to wait for anything. She wasn't planning for the future. She was planning for mine to end. But the moment I decided to take my evidence to the police, Brianna made her boldest, most dangerous move yet one that turned our quiet family dinner into a life-or-death showdown. Part 5 is where everything explodes. By Sunday evening, I had everything packed neatly into a folder: lab results, copies of Brianna's inquiries, screenshots, notes, timelines. I was ready to hand it all to the police the very next morning. But Brianna had different plans. At 5:07 p.m., Ryan and Tommy arrived for our weekly dinner, trying their best to act normal. Brianna was sick, apparently. Conveniently sick. Conveniently absent. Conveniently buying time to figure out her next move. Or so I thought. 15 minutes later, the front door opened without a knock, and there she was, Brianna, standing in my living room holding a glass pie dish covered in foil. "Surprise," she said in a tone so cheerful it made my skin crawl. I felt better and didn't want to miss family night. I made dessert, apple cinnamon crumble. My chest tightened. Apple crumble, my signature recipe. She stared at me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Thought it would be sweet to make something you love." Ryan frowned. "Brianna, I thought you said you were sick." I recovered quickly. She replied smoothly, "You know me. Strong immune system." Her hand tightened on the dish. And suddenly I knew she hadn't shown up to apologize. She'd come to silence me before I could go to the police. I stepped forward. "Ryan, would you take Tommy outside to play for a minute?" Brianna's eyes flickered. "No need for that," she said softly. "We're all family here." But Ryan didn't argue. He just grabbed Tommy's hand and walked him onto the porch. When the door closed, the tension in the room snapped like a wire pulled too tight. Brianna set the dessert on the counter and peeled back the foil. Steam drifted into the air, sweet, warm, cinnamon-scented, a trap disguised as comfort. "Go ahead," she whispered. "Serve it." I stared at her. The lab results came back. The smile vanished. Just gone. Her whole face hardened into something cold, something dangerous. "Ah," she said quietly. "So you figured it out." The truth hung between us, no yelling, no theatrics, just a quiet, deadly understanding. She leaned forward. "You know, Margaret, had you just trusted me, things could have been easier. You would have gone peacefully. No suffering, no mess." I forced my voice steady. "You were going to poison me." She laughed, small, sharp, chilling. "I was going to free you." Then she reached into her purse. For a split second, I thought she had a weapon, but it was a small vial, a clear liquid. She held it between two fingers like perfume. "This was the original dose," she said, twisting the cap. "Fast, quiet, but you made it harder than it needed to be." My breath caught. She wasn't planning to threaten me. She was planning to finish what she started. Before she could take a step toward me, a voice boomed from the hallway. "Police, drop it, now." Detective Collins and two officers rushed in, weapons drawn. Brianna froze, eyes wide, vial trembling in her hand. It was over. Or so I thought, because what happened after her arrest didn't just expose her past. It revealed something far darker that she'd been hiding all along.